What is linguistic phonics? That's a question I'm often asked. Linguistic phonics is an evidence-led approach to the teaching of reading and spelling. It has its origins in the work of Isabel Lieberman in the 1970s and Professor Diane McGuinness, who laid down a prototype for instruction in the 1980s and 90s. Linguistic phonics is informed by ongoing academic research, a body of knowledge known as the science of reading. It is taught in the context of a model of reading called the simple view of reading that considers reading in its widest sense, including reading comprehension, fluency, knowledge of vocabulary, and understanding of the structure of written language, as well as decoding the printed word. Linguistic phonics could be considered to come under the umbrella of systematic synthetic phonics, or SSP. Linguistic phonics has much in common with other types of phonics instruction, but there are also some differences that are subtle yet have a profound effect on how written language is presented to pupils. This is reflected both in instruction and in program design. Linguistic phonics is described as a bottom-up approach. That means it considers words in terms of their synthesis or building up from their smallest elements. These elements are the speech sounds known as phonemes in the spoken word and the single letters or groups of letters known as graphemes that represent them in the printed word. However, linguistic phonics programs avoid the use of technical language and instead refer simply to sounds and sound spellings or spellings. Linguistic phonics follows a highly structured teaching sequence and scope. It builds up pupils' knowledge of the alphabetic code. That's the relationship between sounds and sound spellings, and the concepts that underpin it. At the same time, it teaches the key skills of blending and segmenting, which pupils need to be able to use the code for reading and spelling. Reading and spelling are considered to be two sides of the same coin. Reading is decoding and spelling encoding. These are taught alongside each other through a program. Instruction reflects the way written language evolved, from the spoken word to the written one. Sometimes this is referred to as speech to print. The language of instruction subtly reinforces the speech to print or sound to sound spelling nature of the alphabetic code. The most obvious example of this being not referring to sound spellings as making or saying sounds. At the start of instruction, a simple concept is introduced, that sounds are represented by sound spellings, as we see here in the word cat. The next concept that's introduced is that some sounds are represented by sound spellings made up of one or more letters, as we can see here in the word ship, where two letters together represent the sh sound. Then pupils learn that some sounds are represented by more than one sound spelling. For example, when working on the sound A, pupils are taught within a single activity that it's represented by these sound spellings. At this stage, pupils focus on a single sound and learn all the ways that it can be represented by sound spellings, with discussion about which are more common. The final concept pupils need to understand is that some sound spellings represent more than one sound. For example, after having worked on the sounds A, E and E, pupils can explore that this sound spelling represents a different sound in these words. In this way, a cognitive map of the alphabetic code is gradually revealed and learned. These concepts are built into instruction, and pupils learn about them as they work through a program. This focus on the simple sound-to-sound spelling nature of written language means that pupils can manage and use words by applying their understanding of the concepts that they're learning, their developing skills, and their growing knowledge of the code. The result is pupils being to decode and encode words efficiently. So let's look at some of the differences between linguistic phonics and some other types of phonics instruction. We've already looked at the subtle differences in language used to indicate the speech-to-print nature of the code. Since every letter in a word can be accounted for and is part of a sound spelling, the vast majority of words can be easily phonically decoded once the pupil has the appropriate code knowledge. High-frequency words do not need to be treated as a discrete group to be learned by sight, that is, by visual memorization of whole words. Working through lists of common exception words is unnecessary as they are learnt within the main body of the program. The concept of silent letters is made redundant, and there's no need to learn lots of spelling rules that are never 100% consistent and require pupils to learn lots of exceptions. As the focus is on the sound, letter names are not taught until the pupils are secure in their understanding of how the code works and have at least knowledge of the basic code. The guiding principles of linguistic phonics are very adaptable and are used to form the foundations of a number of successful programs. These are used with a range of pupils, in a range of schools and settings, and in a range of circumstances. These include initial instruction and intervention in mainstream school, initial instruction and intervention in specialist school, specialist provision, and adult literacy. Linguistic phonics represents high quality, accessible phonics instruction.